Good morning, Parkside. Today I've come with a few encouraging words that somebody may hear and be uplifted. We've now become accustomed to a few new words. We have words such as self quarantine and social distancing, self isolation. We have contact tracing, online homeschooling. And one of my favorite words is asymptomatic. And asymptomatic simply means that whilst you may have the coronavirus in your system, you may not be displaying the symptoms that is associated with that virus. But today the Lord has a word for us. I've entitled our devotion, This Zoom Shall Pass. This Zoom shall pass. And I'm taking our devotion from the first book of Kings, chapter 19. We're told of a prophet named Elijah. Elijah is so powerful that he calls fire from heaven. Elijah is so powerful that he speaks, he prays to God, and the rain stops for 3 years. Elijah is so powerful that actually in previous verses, in previous chapters, Elijah is fed by birds. God sends birds to feed Elijah. And the prophet Elijah now encounters a very difficult time in his life. Elijah gets a message that the Queen Jezebel wants to kill him. Queen Jezebel is after Elijah's life. And so what does Elijah do? Just like we would all do. Elijah runs for the hills. Elijah runs to the desert. Elijah runs and hides in a cave. And there in the cave, the Lord meets Elijah. And this is where we pick our story from 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 13 to 15. So it was when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Suddenly, a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah said, "I have been very zealous for you, Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They've torn down your altars and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone, Elijah, I alone am left, and they seek to take my life." Elijah seemed to be complaining that God, after everything that I've done in your name, now my own life is at stake. Therefore, I had to run. Brethren, sometimes, in fact, many times in our lives, we will question God. Many times in life, the actions or the inactions of God may not make sense to us. How can certain things happen to us? And these things seem to happen especially when our faith is so high, especially when we have come to trust and believe so much in God. But I have good news for you, that the Lord met Elijah at his point of need. The Lord met Elijah just as he hid in the cave. Chapter 19, verses 19 says, verses 15 in fact says, "Then the Lord said to him," the Lord replied after Elijah has voiced out his concerns. The Lord replied in verses 15 and said, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, anoint Hazael as king over Assyria." The Lord instructed Elijah to go back. Go back where you've come from. There is no need for you to hide in this wilderness. And guess what the Lord did? In verses 19, so he departed from there. Elijah departed from the cave and found Elisha the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he was with the 12. Then Elijah passed by him and threw his mantle on him. Basically, this is what happened. The Lord had instructed Elijah to leave the cave, not to feel so alone, because he would provide a helper. He would provide somebody who will help Elijah in his quest, somebody who will help him in his ministry. Today, may the Lord provide a helper for you. May the Lord grant you whatever is on your heart, the loneliness that you feel in this time of self-isolation, in this time of social distancing, in this time where many jobs have been lost, in this time when we have lost loved ones, in this time when loved ones are struggling alone in the hospital. May God provide a helper for you. We're told that Elisha was plowing in the field. Elisha was doing farm work. What does this tell me? What does this tell us? This tells us that God can provide help out of ordinary things. Elisha was not doing anything so special that the Lord asked him to help Elijah. Elisha was going about in his business. Today, may the Lord grant you extraordinary help from ordinary things. What is your issue today? What are you going through today? You've lost that job. Yes, you've received that letter that you're just about to be made redundant. You feel nervous about going back to work because you're not sure if there is still coronavirus out there. You're feeling the strain of mental anguish of being left alone for so long. And it would be remiss of me to not mention the recent atrocities, the recent racial injustice in the United States. Many of us have been traumatized by this news. But the good news is we are not alone. Whatever your situation, God is providing help for us. This wilderness experience that we are facing, this cave experience that we are facing is going to pass. This Zoom and this video recording that we're facing, it shall pass. We shall see each other again. Today, I implore you not to listen to everything on that news. Sometimes you may have to switch off your phone. Sometimes you may have to cry. Sometimes you may have to shield all by yourself. But there is good news. This Zoom, this period, this time, this also shall pass. Just like the Lord asked Elijah to go back, we shall go back. The Lord will move this situation and we will be back to our normal self, whichever that may be. The Lord loves a good comeback story. Elijah returned and found a help in Elisha. God will return us. God will reinstate us to where we were before. God will speak to us with that small voice, and our hearts will be encouraged. This morning, I want to implore you not to get used to this situation. God will turn the tables around. Things will be okay. Don't get used to it. God is working behind the scenes, and your situation will be made okay. I pray that the good Lord bless you on this holy Sabbath day, that you may have courage to continue on this journey called life.